Okay, so in this video, we find out whether the all-new Google Pixel Fold is the true disruptor that it's supposed to be, and I gotta tell you, it just might be. Let's go ahead and jump in. First things first, the price. The base all-new Google Pixel Fold will run you $1,799, and this, by the way, matches the price of the more established Samsung Galaxy Z Fold. Now, before you wonder why Google will dare, price it there for, especially the first generation foldable, let me tell you, there's actually a few reasons why they would price it there. And not to say that it's the perfect phone or anything, but more that the user experience on the Google Pixel phone is actually making most people out there think twice before buying the Z Fold, including myself. I'm a big fan of the Galaxy Z Fold series, but I'm very much questioning how much I really like those Z series compared to the Pixel's phone here. And this is all because of one thing. The Pixel Fold just seems to be a much more manageable foldable when compared to all of the other foldables that are currently available in the market. Now, let's take the design, for example. It doesn't seem to follow your typical mainstream folding phone design. They took a very different approach. And sure, there are a few things that you can call out, that are not so great about the Pixel Fold when you compare it to other foldables, such as, the thicker bezel on the inside there, the fact that it doesn't sit flat on the flat surface when you, open it, unless, of course, you force it to, then it would. But trust me when I say this. All of that is done by design. It's meant to be exactly that way. Take the front display, for example, here. So the front display is what everyone is raving about, right? It's very usable, so much so that you forget that you're actually holding a foldable phone, meaning you forget that you have a larger display on the inside. Now, I promise you, I literally have to actively remind myself, to open the phone so that I can actually use the inside display. That's just how natural it is to hold this phone in your hand and, starting using that front display, right? And there are other things that just come with such ease when the phone feels so comfortable in your hand. The fact that the phone is thinner than many foldables out there and also closes flat, literally like closing a book, something that Google nailed on their first try. This is their very first foldable phone. It doesn't feel bulky at all. It gives that Microsoft Duo type of feel in the hand, except you have a continuous large display in the middle, as opposed to the Duo where, it was pretty much two displays. I mean, it's a foldable phone, but when folded, it still feels comfortable as if you were just holding a regular, candy-shaped phone, like the typical form factor that we see on phones. And beyond all of that, the build quality of the phone itself, this is a premium phone and it feels very, very premium, on par with any expensive foldables out there. Again, I'm not justifying the $17.99 for the, price point, but it is a premium phone. It feels premium in the hand. You're holding something that is expensive and you treat it as such. On the back here, you have this kind of a brush slash, frosted material here that is smooth to the touch. They did an excellent job at it, to be honest. I think they did a great job with the finish of this phone and the build of it. The hinge here is pretty firm. It feels very well built. You can put the display in whatever position you would like. Sure, you can do that with other phones, but when you have something like this where one side of the display is this large, it feels just different when you put it in different positions. So whether you're watching something on the outside of the display or, just half of the display inside, you still get better aspect ratio when compared to the other ones, and it just feels right. By the way, this is also IPX8 rated, right? So it is water resistant. Typically with these devices, when they say IP68 rated or IPX, whatever it is, I'm always saying to a certain extent, I wouldn't want you to go ahead and take your $1,800 phone and just dunk it in the bucket of water just to test it out. But according to the specs sheet, it is water resistant. Now let's go ahead and quickly talk platform. It's running, Google Tensor G2 chipset, and although it works well, I just wish, right? I really just wish I could get more from this Tensor G2. My main issue is the fact that it easily overheats, and we've seen some people complain about it already. Now personally, I haven't encountered a situation where it was overheating so much that the phone, just stopped working or, froze or where I had to wait. I can tell you that if you're doing something heavy, like your typical multitasking, you're doing a bunch of stuff, or if you're playing heavy games, you will feel the phone get warm, right? Now, again, for me, it hasn't gone beyond that, but it's kind of concerning when you're playing with it and then it just starts feeling warm. Obviously, if you were to ask me, I would just point to that Tensor G2 because the phone is so amazing, but I just feel Google needs to do a little bit better. Well, I'm anticipating that they're going to do a lot better with the second iteration of the Fold 2. But anyway, other than that, it does work well. As I mentioned, it may get warm, but it doesn't stop. It doesn't, stop you from doing anything. You could do whatever you want to do with your phone. It's going to work well, and the chipset itself is comboed with 12 gigs of RAM, which is massive for most people out there. It's running Android 13 and it's just silky smooth, man. It's really, really smooth. I couldn't even begin to tell you how buttery smooth this thing is. Google did what they do best here, right? And that is to make it super smooth along with some very seamless animations and, transition. I absolutely love it. They've always done so well with this type of stuff, animations and just how smooth the user experience or their devices are. And like I said, besides getting a little bit warm, productivity itself, the user experience when you're trying to be productive is actually pretty respectable. It's excellent user experience here when you're trying to push for productivity. It will work well, and you can take advantage of this great aspect ratio, which, by the way, having these, thicker bezels actually make for that, right? It's perfect for having a dual setup or a split screen for apps. I constantly have two apps open, right? When I'm using the inside display, that is. I can have my YouTube going on one side and have Twitter going on the other side. I can swap windows or toggle back and forth between, different apps and things like that. One thing that it does like, however, would be something that all Android phones or Android devices like, right? It would be optimization for most apps, right? You do have some apps that are optimized, but of course, not all apps, it's not as if you were in a more controlled environment like, iOS or iPadOS where you have apps that are constantly optimized, right? The apps that are optimized to work here work very, very well. And I just wish we had a lot more apps that are optimized. But from my understanding, Google's way of approaching foldables is to make it so that developers are enticed to go ahead and optimize these applications for Android devices. So this is beyond just the phone, right? So we are looking at this as a jumpstart of not only the phone, but also the pathway for better apps in the future and for building better, smartphone or better Android smartphones. Again, even though I bring up, optimization here, it's really no fault of the Pixel Fold. But I figure I'll just go ahead and highlight that, especially because Google is making these changes to make sure that, future phones could go ahead and take advantage of more optimized applications. Now, that said, the overall user experience of the Google Pixel Fold is top-notch. This phone, the Pixel Fold here, is doing something different. I can't put my finger, I actually tweeted about this. I cannot put my finger on it, but they're doing something that just is different in a good way. And I look forward to seeing what they will do with the second iteration of this phone here. That almost sounded like, my summary. But anyway, let's go ahead and talk cameras here real quick. We all know that when it comes down to cameras, and I'm talking pictures specifically as opposed to videos, Pixel devices, pretty much have no match. Obviously, this could be subjective, right? You have people who like cameras, to come out, or who like their pictures or their videos to come out one way or another. But I can tell you that cameras here are top-notch, at least post-processing, right? The magic that Google has inserted into this phone and their other devices make it so that your pictures are just so amazing. The camera system that you have here comes, I'll say about 95, it's roughly 95% of what you get from the Pixel 7 Pro. And if you are at all familiar with that phone, then you know that the camera on that thing is just fire. I can say that it does a great job at, keeping things natural, just like you are seeing them in real life, right? So that 5x telephoto lens does a great job at that. It also does a great job at zooming into objects and, keeping the results very clean. It's just an excellent camera. That's all I really have to say. Now, let's go ahead and talk battery here. There's not a lot to say about battery, except it's, it's not coming out swinging and blowing your mind. It's not great. The other problem with this is that the slow charging, right? So you have something like the Fold that's going to charge faster. I'm hoping that in the next iteration, Google would do better, right? And that we'll get, even more updates that can help with this. But I know the Tensor G has a lot to do with some of the stuff that this phone is suffering from. Now, I do think that Google's objective was to make a folding phone that people, who are looking for a normal phone that can potentially turn into a tablet, are looking for, right? This truly starts off as a normal phone, given that the front display size is so large. It's like a regular phone. The specs on that front display, of course, the thickness, phone when it's folded, the way it feels in your hand when it's folded, all of that makes it feel like a normal candy form factor type of phone, right? Then, of course, when you open it up, you get to enjoy that gigantic display. It certainly has its, shortcomings, but I think Google did a good job for a first generation folding phone. We can all read, specs off of, like a spec sheet or anything, but it doesn't tell you the full story of what the user experience is about. And if you know anything about Pixel phones, then you know that they're all about the user experience. They do a lot with a little bit of what they have. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they're going to do with the second iteration of this phone because, there's room for improvement, but they did a great job dropping this thing here. Anyways, that's just my take. I'm certainly hoping that this was informative. If you have, your own take, I would love to hear from you in the comment section. So make sure that you comment, make sure you like the video, share if you know anyone who will be interested. Make sure, of course, to subscribe if you haven't done so already. I'm going to catch you in the comment section like I mentioned. I'm also going to catch you in the next video. Up until that next video, of course, as always, stay safe out there.